Well, I think there was two debates. There was the optics and the atmospherics, watching that experience, and then if you read the transcript later and what was actually said, it's quite different. It reminded me of the 60s Kennedy-Nixon. Everybody thought that Kennedy won who watched it because he was calm and poised, but what he actually said was trivial compared to Nixon, who looked sort of angry and tired. So Trump was abrasive, he interrupted, and Biden seemed, although he slurred Trump, was calmer. But when you actually look what Biden said, he's a captive of the left, as you pointed out. He can't answer court packing and a new Green Deal or the violence in the streets because he's made this devil's bargain with the left, and that constrains him, whereas Trump is free to say whatever he wants because he's not trying to delude anybody. What you see is what you get. So fracking, great. Forest management, yes. Law and order, absolutely. In the past, in the present, in the future. And I think that hurt him, that he tried to interrupt because he had the better message. And first 5 minutes was wonderful. He was calm. But I think he got the idea that he was going to rattle Biden, and he interrupted Biden. And he didn't understand that when Biden is free to speak, that's when he goes off the train of thought and he gets ridiculous. And that's why when he does these canned interviews, all of these newspaper and visual people and media pundits, they interrupt him to help him out because he has these little thought bits and they sort of stitched them together. So when he lost his train of thought or something, everybody thought, well, Trump interrupted him. But if he hadn't interrupted him, we would have been sure that he said nonsense. I would say, if I could be a little bit more controversial, that I don't like the format, this gotcha question. It's like, getting on a horse and spurring them and then say, you have 2 minutes to buck and then you're going to stop immediately. If you're going to incite a candidate, then what do you expect? By that I mean, when you ask this question, didn't you at Charlottesville say this, when he didn't say it, and then he gets angry and you say, oh, 2 minutes, stop. And you've got to be absolutely symmetrical. So if you're going to mention Charlottesville, a very controversial topic, and I think misrepresented, then you've got to go to Biden and say, what's the most recent controversial race? Oh, what did you mean by you ain't black? We didn't hear that. Or if you're going to say you won't accept the election, then what's going to be the counterpart? It was going to be something like, you guys, didn't your administration try to disrupt the transition and really cause almost a coup and not accept the 2016 election? And so there wasn't that symmetry, and I think that marred the debate. And what was the strategic analysis of it? I guess what happened is, you were right about that a lot of people who got a reassuring message from Trump that he's the protector of prosperity and law and order were turned off by the interruption. And maybe he lost a swing vote. Maybe he, on the other hand, he revved up his base of there are deplorables, irredeemables that have not come out to vote that might get revved up, and he might have weakened some of Biden's base that said, wait a minute, you're flopping and flipping all over, and you made a bargain with us that you're supposed to get this radical agenda through. And so it's hard to tell, but it also depends on the polls, Tucker. In 2016, the mainstream polls were wrong. And I mean the Wall Street Journal, NBC, you name it. And they had Trump losing by quite a lot. Now they're saying the same thing, and we don't know whether they're wrong again or suddenly they're going to be right. And the outlier polls were right in 2016, and now they're considered wrong because Trump is within the margin of error in things like Rasmussen on the state level and Trafalgar and Emerson and Zogby. And so what that means is Trump either had a draw and he's ready for debate number 2, where presidents usually do better in the second debate, or he was behind and he had to make this up. And we're going to find out very quickly. But I think there's going to be a sense on the Biden campaign that they're going to, I don't think they can get out of it, but they're going to try to float balloons and say, you know what, this was just so much, it was so combative. Right. Do we really want to go through this again? And thinking that they have their lead maintained, I don't think they increased it, and they'll think, let's find a different venue. Because, and I don't know if that suggests that they don't want to go through this again and therefore they're afraid of it, or they feel that they squeaked by and they don't want to risk their success.
I want to ask you, just in the minute we have left, since you have studied political systems going back thousands of years to the classical era.
Yeah.
The idea of changing the Supreme Court, the Electoral College, the filibuster is a newer innovation, but adding to the size of the Union in order to pack the House and Senate. I mean, put this into some context for us. These are not moderate proposals. These seem like blows against the system itself.
Well, but they're expected. That's what the French Revolution was about. It wasn't about changing the government or making a constitutional republic out of a monarchy. It was changing the year, even the dating system, and even the days of the week or months, or destroying the church. Because the left does not have a message that people will embrace. It's contrary to human nature, this idea we're all going to share and everybody is going to be equal by result. Nobody wants it. So the Democrats realized that that message is not going to go anywhere. We're not back to 40-hour work week, disability, Social Security that people embrace. What they're saying is we got to change the demographic with open borders, or after 150 years, we've got to get rid of the 9-person Supreme Court, or after 233 years, we got to get rid of the Electoral College, or we got to get rid of a 190-year filibuster, or a 62-year tradition of 50 states, because we can't win on our current agenda, so we're going to change the rules. And that's typical throughout history of the left. And it doesn't require a majority. And I think you're right about that, that if it's done in a particular fashion and people don't speak out against it, whether it was in France or whether it was in Russia or was almost during the 60s, passivity it fuels it, it empowers it. People have to say, you know what, we're not going to change the rules. You play within the parameters of this and within the field. You're not going to go outside the sideline. And that's very important. That's one reason Joe Biden would never answer that question. And it was frustrating for Trump. I just wish that he'd focused on that more, but I can see why he was frustrated, and I don't think the moderator really held Biden to account to answer those questions. And that's what the debate was about. And we'll see what happens in the second debate. But I have a feeling that it didn't change for now whatever the polls had recorded before. And you can argue about what they recorded, but I think we're going to go into the second debate with a sense of desperation on both candidates. They've got to change the polls depending on what their attitude about what they really say are.
Well, I strongly agree with you that at this moment, bravery is the vital virtue. Clear-thinking people telling the truth. We won't survive without it. Professor, thank you.
Yeah.